Welcome to the show, I guess. I'm your host, John. This is kind of sort of my rambling monologue. And I'm the Southern Constitutionalist. So I got a question for you guys. Are the American people being taxed to death? Now, I know, and I kind of sort of get it, the Constitution does give the legislature the ability to tax. And that tax revenue is supposed to be used federally for things like interstates, highways, maintaining a standing military, defense of the country, things like that, that the federal government's supposed to be for. There's add the U.S. Supreme Court in there, and it's maintain the Constitution, which the Constitution is written to limit the powers of the government. So on and so forth. I know, I get it. Government can't do anything without some money to do certain things with. But think about it, okay? We get taxed on the right to work. We get taxed on earning money. We get taxed on property that we own. We get taxed on things that we purchase. We get taxed on things that we sell. It's like anytime money changes hands, we get taxed. We get taxed on the money that we've earned, usually before we even get paid. A portion of that goes into a retirement fund for those who have it. But once they start drawing from that retirement fund, they get taxed on their retirement. So they're being taxed twice on that little bit of money. Not on the difference, the whole thing. For people that are on Social Security, for people that are on disability, that's money that's given to them out of, Social Security. Because even disability comes out as a part of Social Security, which is money that the government took from us to begin with. But then we get taxed on that Social Security. Where's the sense in that? We get taxed on making money. We get taxed on selling, on buying things. We get taxed on selling things. We get taxed on property that we own. We get taxed on the increase of property that we own. And think about it. For a house, even when the mortgage is paid off, you're still paying yearly taxes on the house, so you never really own it. And those taxes just continue to go up because property values, for the most part, continue to go up. As long as the property is maintained and kept up. But then you're paying taxes on the services and contractors and the appliances that you need to keep that property up. And you're kind of being taxed twice because you have to pay the sales tax even for services, but those people have to pay a tax on the services that they provide. Say the government charges them a 3% tax, they're going to give you a 5% increase so that they can break even. A lot of people nowadays are talking about inflation. I don't know how accurate it is. I hadn't sat down and tried to figure it out, and I have no plan on it. But a lot of people are talking about inflation as a hidden tax because it causes the value of the dollar to go down. Which kind of sort of makes sense to me. I guess it could be construed as a hidden tax. About the only thing we don't get taxed on is the air we breathe, and I have a feeling that's only because they don't have a way to tax it and take the air away from us if we don't pay it. But we get taxed on water, we get taxed on electricity, taxed on gas. We get taxed by the municipalities for where we live. We get taxed by the state, but we get taxed by the federal government as well. What was one of the reasons for the Revolutionary War? A civil war, I might add, because we were still part of England at the time. One of the cries leading up to the war was taxation. No taxation without representation. King George refused to allow people to have, from the colonies, to have representation in the Parliament. How many of us are actually getting adequate representation, let alone being able to discuss something with our supposed so-called representatives before they vote for a tax increase? When is the last time you heard somebody agree with a tax decrease? Look, I get it. Things need to run. But I'll bet money, if somebody went and they sat down and took how much money they made before taxes and then figured out what their average spending is for the month and what portion of that, sorry, not what percentage, but what the taxes are on top of what that would normally cost them, and add that to the tax revenue that's removed from their paycheck. Now, I don't know about other places, but around here, you're usually a third of your paycheck is taken before you even see it for taxes. I'll bet that more than half of our income, supposed income, just goes straight to taxes. That's my thought. That's my guesstimation. I've been thinking about this a lot for the last few days. I'm not really sure why, but this has been rolling around in my head. Actually, no, I do know why. Because 2 out of the 4 books I'm reading has referenced taxation. Fair enough. Americans are a very charitable people. We always have been. But do you guys realize that before the federal government started taxing us more for government subsidized programs, more Americans gave to charities, and charities did better? But you've also got to remember that part of the problem is with the federal government subsidizing some of these charitable organizations, they also have strings attached to the money that these organizations get. They have to do certain things. They have to say certain things. They have to qualify in certain ways. They don't just give them the money. So how about the federal government quit taxing us the money that's going to these organizations and let us give the charity money to the charities that we want to support? And I'll bet that their charitable donations go up. They used to get more charitable donations and have more money given to them when it came straight from Americans and not from government subsidies and other stuff. that had strings attached. Part of that's because the American people weren't taxed quite as much and had more money to give out of their own pockets. But the other thing is that a lot of times when a charitable organization applies for a grant or a subsidy, they'll apply for one that's, say, $1,000, and they get about $900 out of it if they're approved and accepted, because the extra 100 goes to pay for the overhead and the paper pushers. Really? I've taken out student loans. It's the same thing with my loans. $25,000 in student loans, but the school only got $22.4 thousand. The rest of it went to so-called overhead and processing fees and clerk fees and whatever else. Government works best when it stays out of our life and out of our way. People are more giving, and people also have more movement further up on the food chain when it comes to a socioeconomic status and performance, when they actually have more money they earn and can decide how it's best to be used than the government taking it and telling you how it's going to be used without you having a say-so. So here's one of my ideas. I've said before that I have ideas in relation to redoing the tax code completely. Number one, tax code is so large that the volumes over the years fill up an entire library by itself. Which means the IRS gets a burr up its butt and decides that they don't like you for one reason or another, which the IRS has been weaponized by the government. They can go back through all those volumes. If they have a digitized copy, they can type in a keyword search and find something to fine you with, charge you with, so on. Somewhere in the tax code, I promise. The damn thing is so large that nobody knows what the hell is in it. And that's a bad thing. So here's one of my ideas and one of my propositions. We pay tax. We'll pay a transaction tax in our local municipalities. Those fund the municipality. We will pay an income tax to the state. A certain percentage of what we make goes to the state. The state pays a tax to the federal government. Say 5-10% of what the state takes in off of its tax revenue at the end of the year. And really and truly, that's all the federal government should need. The federal government, other than keeping the military up and running, really shouldn't need more money than a single state needs to run itself, because the state is responsible for far more than the federal government is. Each state is a sovereign entity unto itself. It's in the Constitution. The other thing is most European countries, the government does their taxes for them, sends them a notification in the mail so that they can go and look through the tax bill or receipt or whatever. And if they agree with it, whether they owe money to the government or the government owes money to them, if they agree with what the government gives them as far as a breakdown is concerned, they sign off on it and send it back. They don't go and pay somebody else to do their taxes and file themselves. But at that being said, if we redid the tax system, got the government out of everything that it has no business being in, get rid of the IRS, get rid of the Federal Reserve, get rid of the FBI, the CIA, all these other alphabet soups that are not constitutional, and we get rid of all of those guys, shrinks the amount of money that the government needs. Far less responsibility on the government, more individual responsibility on each person, the way it's supposed to be. I'll bet money you'd see people's lives improve. The government's there not to grant us rights and freedoms. We have those rights and freedoms innately. We're born with them. The government is there to protect those rights and those freedoms. I believe it was Socrates, but I might be wrong. One of the ancient philosophers said, the more rules and laws a government has, the more corrupt the government. And he's absolutely right. There are so many rules and laws on the law book, both municipalities, states, and federal level, that just by breathing, you're breaking one of the laws. It could be a law that's 150 years old, that nobody knows what the hell it is or even that it exists, but you're breaking a law. All of it needs to be simplified. There was a news story here in the Charleston area last night that was talking about choking somebody is not a crime within itself. One probably got something to do with it. Seems to be a fetish, a growing fetish nowadays. But the other reason is when they asked one of the district attorneys, I believe, or somebody from the district attorney's office, their response was, no, it is not a separate crime by itself, but it's covered by domestic violence, abuse, assault, and battery. So if I was to go and randomly choke somebody, there's 3 charges that I could be facing. 3 very big charges, just for that one act. It's kind of what our legal system has turned into. These people were on the news doing the story, not the DA, these outside agencies and these abuse shelters, saying that they wanted to create it underneath a separate crime. Why? It's already covered. And the DA just told you that. It's in the law book. Abuse is defined as da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da to include choking. Domestic violence is blah, 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 blah to include choking. Assault and battery is da-da-da-da-da-da-da to include choking. You don't need a separate crime when it's covered by something else. Yeah, I know. Kind of rambling, and I'm actually getting off topic, even though it's somewhat related on that thought train process. Tax laws, and then laws in general. This was really supposed to be about taxes and taxes only, but it'll be all right. But yes, that's my question for you guys. What do you think? Are the American people being taxed to death? Do we actually have representation before we get taxed? Does our reputation give us a chance to, is our representatives given a chance, or do they even offer the chance to inform us of possible new taxes or changes, and for us to tell them, email, phone call, whatever, whether we think yes or no, good or bad? What are your thoughts? comment below, or you can go to anchor.fm, do a search for The Southern Constitutionalist, and click on the little button that says leave voice message. Or you can go to theconstitutionalconfederate.com, click on contact, leave me a message there. But I want to hear what your thoughts are on it. So, till next time, you guys watch your six.